Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com, on Roku, Dwyer Boxing and Sports News. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. The Thomas Hauser story on Floyd Mayweather after the weigh-in. Again, after the weigh-in. Using an IV, Mayweather claims it had saline in it and vitamins, right? Without obtaining a waiver beforehand, if you believe Hauser, is a major story, right? What I want people to do here, because understand, we were sold the idea that this was, a fight that took place under a drug testing protocol, right? That's an active part of the selling of Mayweather-Pacquiao. Right now, what I want people to consider here is, when did Floyd Mayweather obtain authorization from the testing outfit to use the IV? If he obtained that authorization before he used the IV, if that information was shared with Pacquiao's camp before he used the IV, then this is a non-story. This is an IV used under the auspices of the drug testing protocol, right? But if, as Hauser alleges, Mayweather didn't even have authorization to use the IV at the time he used the IV, and this is a big problem, right? Because, of course, the drug testers would then be trusting Floyd Mayweather. And this should be a situation where there's no trust, where the fighters are being tested. Let me point out, too, that you have drugs out there right now that act quickly. I'm not saying anybody used drugs, but understand the drug testing protocol was to remove that possibility. You remember the Tour de France. You remember Floyd Landis. You remember the last leg, the year Landis won. He supposedly took some fast-acting testosterone that gave him a boost during that race. Right here, the drug testing protocol has been made a mockery. If any fighter post-weigh-in, without notifying the other camp and without notifying the drug testing agency and without having the IV being monitored while it's being administered, right, the entire drug testing protocol would be an absolute farce. Because, let's get dark here, a fighter could wait until after the weigh-in to then take something that's going to flush out of their system and give them a short boost, right? Let me also point out, too, that Thomas Hauser is a well-known author who has written on boxing for years, right? Any effort by anyone involved in this story to, claim that he's a loon or to hurt his reputation should go out the window, right? The only question here, in my opinion, is his data correct? If Floyd Mayweather didn't ask for authorization until after the fight, if he didn't receive authorization until after the fight, this is a big story, right? Let me shift gears. Let's talk about a great interview that just got posted online that you need to look at. It's an interview on Fight Hub TV, great channel here on YouTube, right, of Virgil Hunter. Now, many of you know Virgil Hunter as we'll call him a superstar trainer, or a trainer of superstars, right? He trains one of the absolute best fighters in the world today, Andre Ward. He's training Andre Berto for a big matchup against Floyd Mayweather, right? He's also training Amir Khan, right? One of the most talented fighters in the world today. In other words, Virgil Hunter, in addition to other guys he's training, right? He's training some up-and-coming amateurs. Virgil Hunter has a nice stable of fighters. Let's say Virgil Hunter has been involved in some big fights. Now, in this interview, he talks about Amir Khan, and it's jaw-dropping, right? I know there are many of you out there who just assume that, these fighters hire superstar trainers and then actually listen to the superstar trainer's advice, actually takes advantage of the superstar trainer's expertise, experience in the game, right? Why would I pay a superstar trainer if I'm not going to fully commit to the training? But in this interview from an excellent source, the trainer himself, you're actually finding out that right now Virgil Hunter doesn't even know where Amir Khan is. You find out that Virgil Hunter, really, it's a scene out of a Rocky movie, shows up at the weigh-in, is looking at Chris Algieri, sees that Algieri's in shape, sees that Algieri firmly believes that he's going to beat his fighter, Amir Khan. And then Virgil Hunter goes over to Khan and is talking to Khan and says, look, man, you need to be serious about this. This guy's coming after you. And of course, Khan, it's in one ear and out the other. Right? Virgil Hunter claims that Khan really didn't respond the way he thought he would. Right? In the piece, too, Virgil Hunter openly wonders, and it's an amazing moment caught on tape. He openly wonders why Amir Khan, right, isn't fighting champion and fellow countryman Kell Brook in what would easily be one of the biggest fights of the year, right? The big fights out there, right? Canelo Cotto, Tyson Fury Klitschko. I would argue that Brook Khan sells out an arena in the United Kingdom. That would be a huge fight. That's almost Froch Groves. Right? And Virgil Hunter further acknowledges that the two guys came up together. The two guys know each other. The two guys used to spar together. Just understand there's some people high up on Amir Khan's team who are wondering why that fight hasn't taken place. Obviously, Khan, and I'll agree, the fighter is the king of his career. But let's just say you don't get the feeling, looking at the Virgil Hunter interview, that Hunter is completely on the same page as Amir Khan in how Khan is going about his career. Let me also say, too, as just a gambler from the cheap seats, guys with punching power, guys who rely on just lowering the hammer on you sometime over 12 rounds. I don't believe guys like that need to train as much as guys who rely on hand speed, right? Placement of the hands, movement, right? A lot more is going on with guys who rely on hand speed. You have to keep fresh. You have to keep your hands moving quickly. You can't suffer any kind of decrease in hand speed. In my opinion, that's the game that Amir Khan is bringing to the table, right? He's not a guy who just goes in there looking to land one big punch. He's actually a guy who's trying to be highly technical, who's trying to get off combinations, who's trying to tuck big-time punches in the middle of combinations. In other words, his game is exactly the kind of game that a fighter would want to stay near the gym with so he could stay sharp. It's astonishing, truly astonishing, that that's not what's going on, that Virgil Hunter believes right now Khan is someplace in Malaysia. Doesn't know when Khan's going to come back. This isn't a deal where, Khan has said, hey man, look, my sister's getting married. I have to be there for family, but I'll be back in the gym next Wednesday, and we'll get to work on trying to work out a left hook. That's not who Amir Khan is. Now, I know he's in his 20s, but let's just say you should be concerned. I want people to look at the downturn in the career of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Right? He had a superstar trainer, Freddie Roach. He had a big fight in front of him. He was fighting, in my opinion, one of the better middleweight champions in recent history, Sergio Martinez. This was a unification match. If you believe Freddie Roach, Chavez Jr. showed up for sparring something like 5 times before the bout. Was uninspired, had a superstar trainer, but didn't seem to realize that the sport really is a sport you work out in practice before the fight. Right? The fight itself is really almost a non-event. In other words, the match is won or lost many, many times in practice when you're sparring. And Chavez, of course, showed up in a fight that he had a chance in and loses something like the first 11 rounds before getting a knockdown in the 12th round and then being unable to close the show. I would argue since then, since Freddie Roach said, enough. I'm not going to have a guy taking up my time when I have superstar fighters like Miguel Cotto, who I know are dedicated and who want my help, who'll use what I offer more than a guy who only shows up for 5 sparring sessions before fighting Sergio Martinez. Right? I would argue that Chavez Jr. hasn't been the same since. Chavez Jr. has gone through some trainers, right? He was with Joe Goosen, now he's supposed to be with someone else. He's in the wasteland. You need to pay close attention to Amir Khan and Virgil Hunter. Right? Understand, Khan has retooled his game under Hunter. Right? He's added a lot of defense and stuff like that. In my opinion, it would be a major step backwards for him if he were to not take full advantage of his relationship with his trainer. Let me close by saying, one of the fights that stayed with me, one of the moments in boxing that's a must-see, was Nigel Benn's fight against Gerald McClellan. Now understand, that fight ends in tragedy. McClellan, gets stopped and then has major health problems that have continued to this day. His career ended. Right? A lot of people stayed away from films of the fight. You don't want to see a car crash where someone actually gets hurt. Right? But there's a moment in that fight that's jaw-dropping. Nigel Benn gets knocked out of the ring. I'm not kidding. Gets knocked out of the ring. And while the referee is counting, Ben gets up, climbs back into the ropes against a hellacious puncher, and convinces the referee to let him continue. Right? It's one of those moments you have to see to believe. Right? You can say a lot of things about Nigel Benn. Just remember to add that this guy was a warrior, right? Talk about heart. Well, he's now hooked up with a heavyweight you need to know about. Lucas Brown. Now, Lucas Brown used to be a kickboxer. He has great timing. He knows how to move his legs. Right? Understand, there's going to be a shakeup, in my opinion, in the heavyweight division. I'm expecting 18 months from now, the heavyweight division to look very different than it looks now. Right? One of the guys who might benefit from that is Lucas Brown. Right? Just so you know where I'm coming from. I believe that Tyson Fury beats Vladimir Klitschko. Right? Before you follow me over the cliff on it, understand the risk involved. Right? There was a time where I wouldn't bet on Tyson Fury fights because I, without any medical training, just my opinion, believe Tyson Fury is a bit mentally unstable. Right? He has high highs, he has low lows. Google him here online. You're going to find out there have been times in his life where he's thought about ending it all. Right? You can tell a guy at a press conference who's having fun, who's teasing the other guy, right? Ali, Adrian Broner, Bernard Hopkins, right? These guys show up, they're joking with the other guy, they're talking trash. This is a talking trash sport, right? Jorge Paez back in the day, if you recall him, right? But then you got guys who are serious at press conferences. They don't get the joke. Right? They're serious. They have thin skins. Right? They're up and down. You can tell the guy is high strung. Right? That's Tyson Fury. Now understand, boxing has had some great fighters. And I mean truly great fighters. Who, in my opinion, have been up and down emotionally on a mental health level. Where you see a guy, one of the biggest upsets in boxing history. I'm not going to say the guy's name because of medical privacy. But this champ, who was known as an absolute terror, entered the ring and he was flatlining for several rounds. Just flatlining with his title on the line. Right? The crowd was hushed because the fight took place in a foreign country. But you could tell something was wrong with this guy. He himself has talked about in interviews using antidepressants. You have another guy, Olympic gold medalist. He was unbeaten at the time. He was a champion at the time. He had a huge fight against a Hall of Fame opponent. He claims he was feeling down that day. As he walked into the ring, he knew in his heart he didn't have it that night. He knew in his heart that he was going to lose the fight. This was before the fight started. As it was, he was able to go the distance, but he was down that day. Now, I have no doubt that if Tyson Fury comes in the ring ready, if he comes in the ring with his A game, I personally don't believe there is anything that Vladimir Klitschko, a future Hall of Famer, can do. You're talking about rare talent here. You're talking about one of the best heavyweights of the last 5 years, easily. Right? Tyson Fury should be able to have his way. If you're a gambler looking at these odds, and I have my price, right? You have to take this bet. Tyson Fury to win the fight, hedged with Klitschko by KO. Why? Because Vladimir Klitschko has a punch. But understand, even in Germany, I just don't see how Vladimir Klitschko can win a decision. If Tyson Fury comes in and starts pumping a right jab and starts using length, and if Klitschko opens up, like he did in the Tony Thompson rematch, there's a chance that Klitschko might get stopped outright. But you also need to understand mental health. If Tyson Fury's having a bad day, and this has happened to Hall of Fame fighters, if he comes in the ring uninspired, doubting himself, self-loathing, right? Think Oliver McCall against Lennox Lewis, the rematch. Right? I encourage you to look at that film. McCall is even crying during the fight against a fighter he had already beaten. Right? If Fury comes in like that, then he'll be in trouble. Let's just say I'm expecting Fury to take Vladimir Klitschko's crown. I would take Povetkin right now, or Lucas Brown right now, over Deontay Wilder. Let's just say a lot is happening at heavyweight. I'll be the most shocked man watching fights if those two guys are still heavyweight champion 18 months from now. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for stopping by.